I am, as this was several years ago, a 35-year-old blonde white Italian American with barely 2-year-old twins. And now, I may be biased, but my boy-girl twins are exceptionally cute. Weirdly, though, they don't even look related. My son in particular got a lot of attention due to his strawberry blonde hair and giant blue eyes. So I head out to Target with my twinsies, parking slightly far from the main entrance because I like to be close to where you can return the carts, and there weren't a ton of carts in this row. As I'm getting out, another couple who parked it near me and I exchange smiles clearly. Their son is the same age as my kids. The dad is a bear of a man huge, with a beard for days and arms like tree trunks. As I'm walking around Target, looking at all the things we don't need, I vaguely noticed two couples who seem to be in a lot of the same areas as me. They aren't speaking English, and if I had to guess, I'd say probably Russian, but I couldn't really tell. Now, fast forward, I get in line behind one of the couples. My daughter is in the seat part of the cart, and my son is in the wide open part. And out of nowhere, the woman from the couple behind me is all up in my cart and personal space. Meanwhile, the couple in front of me, after paying, doesn't move out of the way. Weird. Move over, guys. What are you doing? And then the woman behind me leans completely over my cart, placing herself between me and my son. I have no idea what she's doing. Still, it seems like her main objective is to block my eye line from him. I have my hands on my daughter, but I can't even see my son. She's a big lady, and she is way too close to my kids. She is leaning so far over my cart that her body is practically resting on both sides of it. Again, I can't even see my child anymore, who up until 2 minutes ago was less than 10 inches away from me. I asked her to back up when she started inching closer, but she just responded in her native language. I gestured to show her what I meant, and I repeatedly asked her to please move. Excuse me, etc., and it was obvious that I was trying to get her away from my children. Even if you don't speak the same language, it's pretty damn clear what I was trying to imply. And she just blatantly ignores me. I'm trying to lean around her to grab my son and throw him onto the conveyor belt just to get him away from this couple. Seriously, what are they trying to do here? And she refuses to move, and I can't get to my son, and this starts to go on for several minutes. We're not even checked out yet because I have items in my cart that I can't reach. I'm also blocked in on the other side by the other couple, who are standing completely on top of me. At this point, I am full-on yelling at the woman to get the fucking away from my kid. Finally, I grab my cart and smash it as hard as I can into her, and she starts yelling at me and backs up just enough for me to grab my son, who is now hysterical. The 16-year-old cashier was useless, even though I was screaming at her to call security the entire time. Then the bear from earlier sees everything happening and rushes over with his family. He shoves the other couple away from me, and we ditch all my attempted purchases. He escorts me and my twins back to our car safely, and he and his wife even follow me for a bit onto the highway, just to make sure that we weren't being followed. So, to the tourists at Target who attempted I don't even know what you were attempting. You raised all my mama bear red flags, and you're lucky I didn't smash my keys into your face, because that was my next move. In August of 2023, I was in my junior year at a trade school in Sumuru County for graphic design. A sophomore named James noticed that I wasn't getting dropped off at our home school like he was, and one day he offered to drive me home. I didn't know this kid well. I had spoken to him a few times, but we weren't friends. I told him that my mom prefers to meet people before letting me ride in a random person's car, especially a guy. At the time, I was 18, so I also mentioned that if he got into a wreck, I would be legally responsible as the adult in the car. After that, he didn't really bother me much. We still talked occasionally, and it was clear that he wasn't neurotypical, but things didn't get creepy until my senior year. We exchanged numbers because I sometimes helped him with homework that he didn't fully understand, and I also recommended some horror channels on YouTube like Reddit stories, creepypasta readings, or channels that covered disturbing videos such as Hannah the Horrible, Nick Crowley, and Nexpo. Within a month, he somehow found my home address, and I never told him where I lived, and he got dropped off way earlier than I did. The way our homeschool system worked was that all students on the west side of Fontaine heading into Solani went to one middle school and high school, while students from East Fontaine going into Lau went to a different high school. I never told this kid where I lived, not even a rough area, and at this point, I started documenting everything, no matter how big or small. Over the next few months, if I fell asleep on the bus, he would tap my headphones, snap them against my ears, kick my legs, shake me, or call my phone just to force me to talk to him. In April, he asked me to prom, and I repeatedly told him that I was not interested. He tried to manipulate me into going, so I ended up lying and saying that I had a family event that day. After that, I reported him to the principal for harassing and shaming people into going to prom, and he gave me the most insincere apology ever. It was clear that he had been forced to do it. The next day, he called me and asked if my sister drove a red car and worked at the Sango Namiya coffee house. I quickly told him no and blocked his number. I then went to administration, bringing up the fact that this kid had been calling me to ask if I had gone to Dollar General, if I was at work, or if I was at home. He also told me disturbing thoughts about wanting to kill his mom's boyfriend, describing how he wanted to smash his teeth in. He smacked his phone against the bus window, tried to manipulate me into calling him while he was having a panic attack, and ranted about how our math teacher needed to be gutted because she was overweight. He went on a misogynistic rant about how fat women are ugly and horrible vessels for producing babies, and she wasn't even overweight due to a poor diet. She had a medical condition that caused a buildup of estrogen. The worst moment was when he lost his AirPods case and had a full-on meltdown. He aggressively stomped on his AirPods, foamed at the mouth, and threw a tantrum in pure rage. I reported everything to the principal and the school liaison, and instead of listening, they yelled at me for an hour, accusing me of being mean to a kid on the spectrum. I thought that he just played Overwatch. They even justified his actions by saying that my information, my mother's information, and my sister's information were all public anyway. At this point, I started having a panic attack and called my mom, and I was literally vomiting into the trash can in the conference room. My mom was pissed. She told me to call the sheriff's office as soon as I got home. The sheriff actually went to this kid's house and warned him to knock it off, or else I had every right to file stalking and harassment charges. The 180 Women's Shelter later confirmed that what the principal and liaison did was disgusting and dangerous. So far, I haven't seen him, and I still have his number blocked. Hopefully, I never see that little idiot again. And to James, if by some chance you ever see this post, stay away from me and my sister. I hope your future commanding officer finds out about all of this. Oh, and that's right, this guy wants to join the army. This happened approximately 10 years ago, around 2015 to 2016. I was living with someone at the time who worked on an opposite schedule as me. He worked graveyard shift, and I worked during the day, so when I was getting up and getting ready to leave for work, he was just coming home. On the nights during the week, I obviously would be at home by myself, and one night during the week, I was feeling especially lonely. My favorite toy unfortunately broke and died, so I decided to drive downtown to the 24-hour adult store to buy another one. The town I live in is a mid-sized suburban town filled with mostly residential areas. The main downtown area was essentially one small area on the way to the freeway, and my apartment was 10 minutes away. I pulled into the parking lot behind the adult store. The parking lot was dark and had multiple entries all around that led to the bars and restaurants as well as the store. After parking my car, I walked towards the entrance of the store, which was on the street, and to do so, I had to walk towards the driveway that I came in to park. Upon walking to the entrance, I noticed a man standing by himself, smoking a cigarette. It was 1 a.m., and not normal to just see only one person standing by themselves there, though I figured he was one of the patrons from one of the bars on the block, taking a cigarette break. As I walked past him, he says, "Hi," to which I responded with a very quiet, "Hi," but didn't make eye contact with him. Upon passing him, I had a better look at his appearance. He had a shaved head, wore a long white t-shirt with shorts hanging past his knees, and he had a pair of sneakers accompanied with some tube socks that covered his shins. This is not unusual to see in my town, but I was more concerned that he was sitting by himself and instantly took an interest in me as I walked past him. After passing him and continuing to walk to the store, I saw out of the corner of my eye the man proceeding to follow behind me. When I say follow, I don't mean he coincidentally was walking behind me. He immediately followed right behind me as soon as I passed him, making a point to maintain the same walking speed. I did not know this man's intentions, but a man by himself that late at night is a recipe for trouble. As I looked down the dark and empty street, I weighed out my options of where to go. Initially, I thought, keep walking so he doesn't know that you're going to the adult store. But since it was 1 a.m., and there was no one on the street, I thought that to be probably more dangerous. Then I thought I'd just go in one of the bars. but then I thought that that would give him an easier introduction to approach me. So then I realized my best bet was to continue into the store where I knew it was well lit and people could see me. I proceeded to shop for what I came there for, and the man entered the store behind me but hung out at the front of the store so as not to look like he was following me around. He wasn't even pretending to shop. He literally just sat at the front, waiting. As I was shopping, I heard the man make sort of a sound, to which I ignored, and he wasn't getting the message. And he continued to make this sound as I continued to shop without noticing. Eventually, I walked up to the cashier, who was completely oblivious to what was going on, and I tried to whisper to the cashier, "Yoon, do you know that man, or does he work here?" The cashier asked me to repeat what I was saying and asked again, but still spoke in a quiet voice, not understanding my attempt to be discreet. The cashier responded, "I can't hear you. Say it again." At this point, I felt like my cover was blown, so in a more normal tone, I told the cashier, "The man in front followed me from outside and won't leave me alone." I explained my car was parked in the lot behind the store, and I didn't feel comfortable going to my car, and the cashier said, "Okay." The cash wrap area was an enclosed, square-shaped counter to maintain distance between the staff and the customers. The cashier walked to the front by where the man was, and from behind the counter told the man to leave. He then came up and reassured me that he told the man to go away, though the man did not, in fact, go away. He continued to stay there. Given that I didn't want him to follow me to my car, I stayed in the store and pretended that I was still shopping, even though I had already found what I came for. I would occasionally glance to the front to see if the man was still there, and he was. I kept going up to the cashier, explaining that the man hadn't left, so he went back up to the front to talk to him. I heard the cashier say, "All right, enough. All righty, leave the store." And while he was doing this, I went to the far back end of the store to remain out of sight. And by the time I circled back to the cashier, I noticed the man was no longer there. The cashier said that he repeatedly and more assertively told the man to leave. He said the man claimed that he didn't understand English. The cashier then pulled a baton that he kept under the counter for protection and held it over his head and asked the man, "Do you understand this?" To which the man finally left the store. I made my purchase but was still worried about walking to my car, even though I was parked in one of the first spaces near the driveway entrance. The cashier pointed at a small TV behind him that had 4 angles of CCTV footage, and he assured me that the man was gone and told me to come back into the store if I saw him again. He also said he would watch as I walked to my car, even though I would have felt more comfortable if he had walked me to my car. I understood that he was by himself and couldn't leave the store unattended with customers. After making my purchase, I sped walk to my car, and I always have my keys ready when walking to my car. So I promptly pressed unlock on my car remote, got in, placed my bag of purchases on the passenger seat, and proceeded to start the car. Once my car turned on, I took off the emergency brake, put the car in reverse, and while putting on my seatbelt, I looked in my side view mirror to back out. It was at this point that I saw that same man in the mirror, full-on speed walking right toward my driver's side door. You see, I was driving in a Corolla at the time, and that model automatically locks the doors when you take the car out of park. As soon as I saw him, I hit the gas and violently pulled out of the parking space. I pulled out so fast that it startled him, stopping him dead in his tracks, and he was now standing right next to my driver's side door. As I continued to pull out, I gave him the most serious dead stare I could because I know most predators feed off the fear of their victims. The stare must have worked. As soon as he saw me pulling out while staring at him, he turned his head back toward the driveway entrance and proceeded to walk back to where he had been standing. He had a look of defeat on his face. My face, however, was overcome with relief. I pulled out of the parking lot and took myself back home, and I felt a bit of shame for being out so late by myself. I did tell my boyfriend about the incident when he came home at 6:01 a.m., and he also agreed that going out that late alone wasn't the smartest decision. I'm no longer with that person, but I still live in the same town, though I never leave my home for anything past 9 anymore. While the town I live in isn't the most dangerous, there are still enough crimes that occur here that it's also not considered the safest. I stupidly decided to get gas at 11 p.m. one night because I hadn't made time before work. As I'm pulling up to the gas station, there are a couple of cars at the pumps, which make me feel somewhat relieved and safer going in, but I was wrong. I go inside to pay the clerk since I'm using cash, and as I'm heading back to the pump to fill up, Most of the cars leave except for one truck parked 2 pumps away from me. I get into my car to wait for the gas to fill and start scrolling on my phone. Suddenly, I see this guy walking suspiciously around the front of my car, and I glance up to see what he's doing. Unfortunately, we make eye contact. He asks if I have any change for gas, and I shake my head no. Sorry, and he responds, okay, that's cool. Hey, do you want me to remove your gas pump for you? And I quickly respond, I'm good, thanks. At this point, my tank is full, and he knows it, and he acts fidgety and walks away behind my car. I'm trying not to glare back too obviously, but I subtly am looking around, trying to figure out where he is. I don't want to make it obvious how terrified I am. In my head, I'm thinking, how do I leave with him still around my car? He's out of sight now, and the lot is empty, and I'm waiting for another car to pull up. 5 minutes pass, and nothing. My fight-or-flight response is just kicking my head in, and it's freezing outside, and I haven't started my car yet because the pump is still in. I have no idea where this guy went. Finally, I see him walking towards his truck, but instead of getting in, he's just sort of lingering around it. And the second his back is turned, I go for it. I remove the pump, and as soon as he notices, he quickly starts approaching me again. Oh, hey, you're really beautiful, he says, still walking toward me. And I nod quickly, but suddenly I put the gas cap back on. And then he says, I don't look like a serial killer, do I? With this crazed look in his eyes, like, yeah, bro, you actually do. And at that point, I bolted to my car and just sped off.